I've been to your old board office probably 3 times, 2 or 3 times, I think.
Yep.
And I remember it was this whole collection of little disjointed rooms and separated by halls and everything. So
Right.
I'm excited to see the new facility.
That used to be a car show.
Where you want to start?
Well, at the beginning, that's a good place to start. No,
So
it's-
this is just kind of our main office. Joanne's in here and I sit here and our absentee clerks sit there.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's important to point out, especially for the members of the press, that everything in elections administration is completely bipartisan. My old joke is that it takes 2 people to screw in a light bulb at your board of elections. And what I mean by that is that you got to have both a Republican and Democrat present for everything.
Right.
You'll also notice there's 2 locks on most of the doors. And it's like those old submarine movies from the 80s where it takes 2 keys to launch a torpedo so nobody can do it by themselves, right? It takes 2 keys to get into the rooms where the sensitive equipment is stored at the Board of Elections. So you got to have the Republican key and the Democratic key. And as much as we we work well together. We respect and like one another. That's the sort of keeping each other honest process, right? The Republicans keep an eye on the Democrats keep an eye on the Republicans, and that way we make sure that we continue to run elections that people can trust regardless of their party affiliation.
So this one is normally locked. This is our machine room.
Okay.
We have our ballots from the November election locked and sealed
ready to
right
go
there.
here? Okay.
These are the unused ballots. Our poll pads are these are the cases. Our pads are actually in the vault.
Okay.
This machine here is actually our early voting machine.
Mm-hmm. And that's a clear ballot setup,
Clear ballot,
right?
absolutely.
Recognize that.
Yes.
One of the other security measures that people need to know about is these kind of security seals that go on things, and they're serial numbered. So if somebody were to break that, then you would know it.
Yep.
And it's just another way that we make sure that chain of custody is protected.
Yes.
Right. There's never a time that Republicans can access the ballots without the Democrats there, or vice versa. And that security seal helps you know if somebody had broken in there, you would know it.
Yeah.
Just another one of those security measures. And these are your ballots, right?
Yes.
So
From the
reason
polls.
why they're all here ready to go is for the post-election
Official count.
audit. Well, the official canvass,
count is
and
Friday.
then the post-election audit.
Yes.
A lot of talk about audits these days, and unfortunately, it's because too many people have maybe seen too many YouTube videos about things that aren't true. And what we want to emphasize for people is that we always audit the election. I've had people say in the last couple months on social media say, well, we should do an election audit every 4 years. Every 4 years.
We do it every year.
We do it about
Every
every 4 months, if you think about it, because we do it in the spring for the primary. If there's a special election in the summer, we do an audit. And certainly when we do the fall general election, there's an audit. Last year, when we did that audit of the 2020 presidential election, we had a 99.98% accuracy rate. 99.98%. And what that means is we count the hard copy paper and we compare it to the electronic record, and it shows us that we have a match of 99.98% accuracy. And the fact that we do it the right way in Ohio is something else to emphasize, because it's not done in some sort of a big carnival atmosphere like you've seen in some of these states a state that tried to do a post-election audit the wrong way. It's done by both Republican and Democratic election officials who have taken an oath and are bound by law to uphold that oath. And they do it in a very organized way. It's not a big made-for-television thing. In fact, we don't usually get a lot of attention on them. We're trying this year to get some more media attention about our post-election audits because we want people to know that they happen. It's just another reason why, again, whether your favorite candidate wins or loses on Election Day, you can go to bed confident on election night that it was an honest process. So,
what is an election audit? How is that different from a monetary audit, and what does that prove? Because I know you do the official count to make sure that your counts are accurate and all.
So audits in Ohio for elections, the way that we do it is a few weeks after the election, they conduct the official canvass, and then after that, we audit the results. There are two different ways that you can audit election results. One is what's called a risk limiting audit, which is a statistical technique where essentially the closer the race is, right, the more ballots you have to audit. The the wider the margin of victory, the fewer audits, the fewer ballots you have to audit. There's also a percentage based, which is what most boards will. You guys do a percentage based audit here, where you count a certain percentage of the ballots, you compare it to the electronic record to make sure that you have fidelity. And that's the basic idea of how a post-election audit works, is you're comparing the hard copy paper to the electronic result. It's interesting that, some people said, well, we should get rid of electronic and just do hard copy paper because you can't cheat with that. Well, ask Chicago in the 1960s if people can cheat with paper, right? I mean, anything that involves humans has some opportunity for people to do the wrong thing. So the fact is, we don't just have an electronic copy or just a paper copy. We have redundant. There's 2 copies. So when you cast your ballot, whether it's early voting, absentee voting, or election day voting, there are basically 2 records created. There's
actually 3.
Well, okay.
Because we have 2 electronic sticks in each of our cast machines.
So 2 electronic records and one paper record, right? So you've got the electronic record. And why do we do that? Because we want to know the results on election night. I mean, if we didn't have electronic tabulation, if you had to hand count all these ballots, maybe not here in Jackson County, but up in Franklin County and Hamilton County and Cuyahoga County, you wouldn't know the winner until Thanksgiving. Right. I mean, it would take a long time. So, yes, we have the electronic tabulation so that we can give you that result accurately and quickly on election night, but we also go back and count the paper. And that percentage-based paper audit gives us the ability to confirm for the voters that there was a high level of accuracy. Again, in this case, last year, 99.98%, which is about what we see generally. Some counties, it's 100%. I imagine when you guys do your audits, it's often 100%. There are some cases where very rarely 2 ballots would get stuck together going through the scanner, and that would cause that 0.02% inaccuracy rate or whatever else. Again, a thing that rarely happens.
So is that a hand count then?
Yeah.
Always with everything on the audit. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. And that's the point of the audit, is that it gives us the additional check to make sure that it was done correctly. And we're trying to get people to pay attention to the fact that we do these audits because it doesn't often get a lot of coverage. And I don't fault you guys in the press for this. It's not a particularly interesting news story to run a headline that says Board of Elections doesn't screw anything up today, right? I mean, it's, and that's what often is the result of the audits that we do. It shows that nothing went wrong in the election. It's kind of like the dog bites man versus man bites dog story, right? Where what we're trying to do this year, and why I'm going to travel around to 6 or 8 different boards of elections when they do their post-election audits, is that we're going to try to get the press to come in and show that this is a normal part of doing elections in Ohio. That elections don't end on election day. In fact, it takes weeks after the election before you certify the result and then do the post-election audit. And so those are things that we want to sort of shine a light on so people know that they can trust their elections. So show us the computer you use for ballot design, show us the scanner, and then show us the SOS computer that you use to upload
This
results.
is the ballot design.
Okay.
This is Clear Design. We have a regular one, but we use the laptops.
Okay.
And this is the admin, which allows me to put the election in there so it can be tabulated. Mm-hmm. And then this is for the scan station. Okay. We scan all of our ballots in here, and he has a name.
Okay.
This is Duke.
Is this
Duke was
John Wayne thing, or
nope.
is it okay?
Duke was one of our board members.
Okay.
Who has passed away,
Gotcha.
and all we ever heard from him was we need a high-speed scanner. We need a high-speed scanner.
There you go.
So when we got our high-speed scanner, we named him Duke.
There you go. And that's
for Duke Rhodes.
You guys probably use that for processing your absentee votes.
Absentee ballots and absentee ballots and things that come in the provisionals. We also
Gotcha. So
scan.
It's important for people to know there's a lot of mythology around elections, unfortunately. There's this old conspiracy or myth that they say they only count the absentee ballots if the results are close.
No.
Hogwash. Nonsense. Never been in hundreds of years of our state's history, that's never been true.
Right.
the first ballots counted generally are those absentee ballots because they're here, they're all ready to go, and all of that. So when you start getting results, say you get results at 8:30 or 9 on election night, it's those early votes that are coming in. It's the first ballots that are counted.
Yep, everything that's in our office on election night that does not come from the polls is scanned or uploaded, one of the two, from a stick.
Good. Let's talk about air gap too, because it's important. Although Ohio's really led the way on cybersecurity, and that thing that you're leaning against over there is some of our server racks. We were the first state in the country for every board of elections to reach this standard that we set for cybersecurity. What that means is that everybody switched to a .gov domain. We required all the boards of elections to have an intrusion detector so that we can monitor 24/7 if there is malicious code coming into their website. Everybody had to go to do background checks, and myself included. We all kind of led by example on that, as well as the training that we have to take to make sure that we're protecting the internet connected stuff, which is of course the website, the voter registration system, and all that. There are those aspects which are connected to the internet, but nothing that ever touches a ballot is ever connected to the internet. So the voting machines, the scanner, the tabulation machine, anything that touches a ballot has to be strictly air gapped, meaning the only thing it's plugged into effectively is the wall, right? And so all of this stuff over here, right, can't be connected to the internet. Now, when you go to report results on election night to the Secretary of State's office, would you show us how you transfer that from the computer over here where you tabulate over to the SOS computer where you report?
We pulled all of our election information off of here and put it on a flash drive that is only used one time.
That's provided by
the Secretary of State's office.
And it's sealed in a package.
We have to put a label on it, what time it was uploaded, and all of that stuff. We take it over here to our Secretary of State's equipment and plug it into here and upload it to the state. So it can be checked at any time. If it's here, it's what we've got here. And we have backup of a flash drive that is uploaded, and we have the hard copy pretty much in the computer here. So it's never transferred over the internet directly from our voting machines.
So a lot of people, it's funny, it's because we're so used to getting results so quick on election night, they just assume that voting machines must be connected to the internet. How else would you get it so quick? Well, it's because of the quick work of our boards of elections. When those polls close at 7:30, they've got to pack that stuff up. They get in a car, Republican and Democrat, together in the car because everything's always together. They bring their stuff down to the Board of Elections. It comes in here and gets tabulated. So they're starting to upload results to us by 8:30.
Yeah, pretty well.
And then again at 9:30, and then again at 10:30. And so throughout the night, they're starting to get that stuff gathered up, processed. But again, none of this is connected to the internet.
Right.
By law, it cannot be connected to the internet. This stuff, of course, is connected to the internet. This is the air gap, right? And this is basically what that means. No internet. And so when they load the results at 8:30 and again at 9:30 and then again at 10:30 and bring them over here to send them to us electronically in Columbus so that we can share them with the world, because when you see them on cable news and all across the world or whatever else, it's coming from our feed. It can only go upstream and not downstream. So that thumb drive, that USB drive that they use here, can only be used once, because once it's connected to an internet connected machine over here, it could be dirty, right?
Yes.
And so that way it could never go back here because this stuff is all clean. And so and this exists at every board of elections. Of course, at the big city board of elections, it's a dozen of these type of workstations. But again, this is what we do in all 88 counties to protect the process. So Ohio sets the standard. I was in D.C. yesterday to speak at the U.S. Capitol with a group of members of Congress, and they had myself and the Florida Secretary of State come. It should be no surprise that two states that are really good at running elections are the two states that have been in the national spotlight for 20 years now. It's Ohio and Florida. And in some ways, 15 years ago, we learned the hard way. But now Ohio's really good at this. And we set the example for every other state. Not every other state has the same safety protocols that we have, although that principle that voting machines are never connected to the internet is something that all states understand that
Is it a
principle.
federal law?
It's not a federal law.
So
It is a
states have to
best-
set their own law then.
It's a best practice, right? Yeah. You guys may have heard me make this joke at the election officials conference. Elections officials are like figure skaters. What I mean by that is if we all watch the Winter Olympics, you'll see the figure skaters and they're so good at what they do that you think, well, I could do that. That looks easy, right? If somebody's really good at what they do, they make it look easy. And our elections officials make this work look easy, but it isn't easy. It's a lot of work that goes into it. When people see results instantaneously on election night, the assumption is, well, this all must be connected to the internet. And then, that assumption also brings along with it, somebody must be able to hack it, right? And so people come up with this thing. And the other unfortunate thing is that there are people out there that intentionally pass along false information. They do it for self-serving reasons because it benefits them politically. They do it because they want to try to make money. There's a whole lot of reasons why people, pass along false information on the internet. And so as a result of all of that, too many Ohioans, too many Americans have started to believe that stuff. Now, in my opinion, there are things that we ought to be concerned about with the elections process. We ought to be concerned about last-minute lawsuits that get filed in the month of September, right before the election. We ought to be concerned about the federal government trying to, mandate how elections are run. Those are all things that deeply concern me. But these fantasies about internet-connected voting machines and polynomial algorithms and all these other things that people come up with are just nonsense. And this is also the reason why we've worked so hard to encourage people to be poll workers. The reason why I've told the Board of Elections in every county to have 125% of their need for poll workers. So if your county needs 100 poll workers, we told them don't stop at 100, train 125. So that you have a backup force, you have a reserve force ready to go. And because at 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning, it's too late to train people. You got to have people trained and ready to go. But the other benefit of training extra poll workers is that you're creating an army of people around the state that actually understand how elections work. Last year, we had 56,000 poll workers. Now think about that, 56,000 people. 56,000, that's like half of Ohio Stadium on a Saturday for the Buckeyes. 56,000 people trained and actually educated on the nuts and bolts of how elections work so that they can be truth tellers and they can lean over to their friend in church and say, hey, that email that you sent me yesterday, you shouldn't send that along to anybody else because it's false, right? That kind of thing really makes a difference.
The two ladies that taken the tour here, the director and deputy director, they're both retiring at the end of June. Were you aware of that?
I was.
Okay.
And we're going to do our best to lose their retirement paperwork. So no, listen, everybody deserves to hit that point in their career at some time and then to enjoy the fruits of their labor and go on to whatever's next. These are two young ladies. I'm sure they've got a lot of great other plans after their life as an elections administrator. But part of that is to make sure that we bring in new people with the right amount of time to train them and help them learn the process and that kind of thing. And I know that they have a plan in place to do just that. Next year's going to be challenging. I mean, we faced 2020 was probably the hardest election that we've ever run. In 218 years of Ohio's history, it's probably the hardest election that we've ever run. But it also ended up being the most successful election Ohio's ever had with massive participation, record-setting participation, record number of poll workers, record low number of provisional ballots, record high number of absentee ballots returned, and all those kind of every metric you can look at. So this team that has been through the 2020 cycle has a lot of knowledge to pass on. And so getting that next generation of elections officials in here early, a couple months in advance to train is going to be important. And I suspect, given how passionate these folks are about running elections, that they'll just be a phone call away when the new team has a question about, well, how do you do this or how do you do that? And that's the kind of commitment that I know that elections officials bring to the work that they do. I always say I love serving as Ohio's chief elections officer, but I don't run elections. I don't run a single election. I don't set up voting machines. I don't train poll workers. I don't tabulate the results on election night. I don't pass out the I voted stickers. It's the boards of elections in 88 counties that do that. 2 Republicans and 2 Democrats on every county board of elections. They will make the decision about how to best staff their office, how to equip their team to be successful.